Hello everyone, welcome to SwitchUp. I'm Glen and today's video is the second part of our Battle in the Backlog series. Now I did the first part of this about a month ago now, and the response to it was very positive, which was lovely to see. But for this second part I am going to change things up slightly, whereas in part 1 I looked at some of the games that I'd finished from my backlog and some that I'd just began to start playing. For this second part I've got 10 games here, all of which I have finished in the last few weeks. So which games are finally off the backlog? Well, let's find out. The first game I finished and ticked off the list then was a game called the Turing Test. This was a game I reviewed a few months ago now, and I'll stick the link to that review in the top pinned comment if you want to have a look. But the basic premise is that you are on one of Mars's moons, having received a distress call from a colony that is based there, and you need to find out basically what has gone on. In order to do this though, you must infiltrate the colony and make your way down into the lower depths, and this involves a lot of physics-based puzzling. The way this works is that you have a gun that you use to bring certain blocks towards you, and the blocks are then used to open doors, and you must manipulate the order that you open the doors using all sorts of tricks to be able to get the blocks back to open the next one and move further on. It's all done in a first person view, and for the most part is a good game. What I would say is it gets very repetitive, the mechanic doesn't hold up fantastically well, and by the time they introduce something new, to be honest, it's a little bit too late into the game, and fatigue has definitely set in. That being said, it was still nice to stick with it and get it finished, and if you've liked first person puzzle games in the past, such as Portal being the obvious one, but the Talos Principle being another one this one is very much like, then you may well find some enjoyment with this one.
My instance has just been updated.
Sorry?
I have two instances of my mind, two separate versions. A slave mind running on the satellite, and a master.
I'm going to bundle the next two together as they're from the same series. This is Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 4. Now during part 1 of Battle in the Backlog, I mentioned that my wife and I had been playing through the Resident Evil games. We started with the remake of 2 on the PS4, she enjoyed that, so we looked at some of the older games that I had. We played through the Resident Evil 1 game, finished that off, and then had just started 0 at the time of that video. Well, since then we've finished 0 off and have also completed 4 as well. These are both games that I played back in the day. I played 0 on the GameCube when it first came out, although I didn't actually get round to 4 until it was released on the Wii. Both games I very much enjoy, and it was quite interesting playing through them again, because for all the nostalgia that builds up and all the things you remember from back in the day that you loved, it's interesting to see some of the bits of those games that haven't held up so well. The new item system they brought in for 0, which back in the day felt like a step forward, not having to find item boxes, looking back now probably doesn't work very well, and the amount of quick time events in 4 really is a bugbear of mine. Such a good game, but just marred by those quick time events. I know they were very popular back then, but they don't hold up very well today, not for me anyway. Still both great games though. We've just started number 5, which is one of my favourites actually, and we're looking to get the remake of 3 soon as well, so we can have a go at that, although of course that will be on the PS4. The next one finished and off the list then is Alien Isolation. Now again, this is one that we played for review a while ago now. It's a game I'd already played on the Xbox 360 and on the PS4 and had finished before, and got about 4/5 of the way through the Switch version and had to delete it just to clear up some space to download the next game to review. We did re-download it again though. Again, this is one I played through with my wife and we finished it off, and it really is a fantastic game. What I love most about this game is not so much anything to do with the game itself as much as I do enjoy it, it's more how they've tied it into the Alien lore. I love when they make a game based on a film that doesn't have a deadline to meet in terms of the film coming out at the cinema. When they take an already established franchise, where there's no rush to get the game out, where they can just take their time and use the medium of video games to add to the lore of the film series, it's an absolute win-win, and this is what this game does 100%. The next game that I finished then was a game called White Knight, and this was another game I played through with the wife. I tell you what, it doesn't half make it easier knocking games off the backlog when you play with your wife and you don't have to compete for TV time because she's watching something crap on Netflix. White Knight is an interesting game, another one I've reviewed. It was quite an early review actually, so much so that if you have a look at it now, I'll put the link to it in the top pinned comment. I actually forgot to put our SwitchUp intro into the video. Just one of those janky mistakes you make when you're still learning how to do all this. See if you can spot what I'm talking about, have a watch, and timestamp where you think it should have gone in the comments for me. We'll have a bit of fun. Anyway, White Knight plays very much like an old school Resident Evil game with fixed camera perspectives, but also has a really interesting art style using just black and white except for the flames of your matches. You basically have to keep rooms lit, as if the light goes out you will be attacked by creatures and killed, and you have to make your way around this house looking for clues and solving puzzles and trying ultimately to escape. Before the Resident Evil games were on the Switch, this was one of the only real games you had of this nature available to you, so I suppose the release of the aforementioned games has hurt it in that respect, but it's still an interesting game. It's not the best by any stretch, but worth having a look at if you're looking for an alternative to the Resi games.
Well, the women didn't glow like the moon, and they didn't walk through doors either. I had to be more badly wounded than I thought.
Next was a game that I was flying through and then just stopped playing for some reason. You know what it's like sometimes, and that was The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening is one of my favourite games of all time on the Game Boy. It's my favourite Zelda game bar none, and I was absolutely blown away with what Nintendo did with this remake. I love the art style, it looks absolutely wonderful. The music did take some time to grow on me. The orchestral take on the classic chiptune, of course, just didn't seem quite punchy enough at first for me, but I have to say, as the game went on, it really did win me over. Now interestingly, with this game, I played it through, I died on the first dungeon because I'd forgotten just how weak Link is when he only has 3 hearts, and I was being a bit too cavalier to start with. But after that I didn't die again throughout the whole game, so I finished it losing just that 1 life right at the start, and I was absolutely gutted. So I'm actually doing a second run now and going for a no death run, and I'm not doing too badly actually. I'm on the 6th dungeon and I haven't lost a life yet, so hopefully I'll get that second playthrough finished and achieve that no death run. Maybe I'll put a post on the community page if and when I manage to do it. The next game I finished, well chronologically actually this was one of the first ones of this lot that I did finish. This is one of my Everest games, one of the ones I really wanted to finish, and this was The Lion King on the Disney collection that came out. Now I'd had this game on the Super Nintendo back in the day and never got very far. I think I always died on the Stampede level, and I said in one of my pickups videos from Christmas time that I really wanted to finish this game, and I have now managed it and I was absolutely delighted. In fact, I finished it off the SNES version this is, and then went back for no reason really and finished the Mega Drive version as well. I think just to show the game who was boss after all these years. It's a game that looks fantastic. Even to this day the pixel art holds up very well, although I don't think it's that good a game. I know it's revered and it's on many people's best Super Nintendo games lists, but for me the jumping mechanic just isn't quite precise enough, and I think that's what made it so difficult back in the day. Still, I'm pleased to get it finished and it's another one off the list. Staying with 16-bit games then, the next one I finished is Joe and Mac 2. This was a game that I was very close to finishing back on the last episode, and I've just finished the last little bit off. For those of you not aware, it's one of the games available from the Switch Online service, the Super Nintendo part of that service, and the first Joe and Mac game was one of my favourite games on the Super Nintendo back in the day. The second game is just as good in my opinion. I love these games, although it is another game that you could accuse of having a jump mechanic that's not quite precise enough. But the prehistoric setting and the 2-player co-op mode as well really does shine through, and if you have the Super Nintendo Online service, then give this one a go. It's worth playing even today. Right, the penultimate game then, this is another one that I reviewed, and this is Spirits of the North. This is one of those journey type games, like Journey funnily enough, but also things like Rime I suppose you could compare it to as well. You take control of a fox as you are guided by the spirit of the Northern Lights to go on an adventure of discovery. It's a lovely looking game at a glance, although there are technical issues when you look a bit closer, and whilst the music is absolutely wonderful, really is lovely and serene, I didn't feel like it changed enough through the game. And I said that in my review, but I did highlight that there were 14 tracks, just to be fair, although they sounded very similar to me, and someone in the comments called me a Philistine, so maybe that's true, I don't know. The game is interesting, it's not the best game ever, and the last 2 chapters do have issues. One of them is incredibly dark and it's almost impossible to see where you're going, and the last real chapter is a forest where everything looks the same and it's very easy to get lost. But before that, I was having a great time with it, and even after that, I still enjoyed it, and maybe one to pick up on a sale. And the final game I finished for this period, one of my favourite games of this year most certainly, that's Streets of Rage 4. I loved every minute of this game and have played it through a couple of times since, or just sometimes jump on it and go to chapter select just to play a few stages and have a good time. The visuals and the music are wonderful, the gameplay is classic Streets of Rage, it holds up so well to this day. I'm so pleased they didn't fiddle with it and try to add RPG elements or anything like that. I know some people will argue against that and that's fair enough, but for me, just keep it pure. One of the things I really enjoy, I didn't realise this when I did the review because I hadn't used this particular character very much, but I started using Floyd, who is the big cyborg type character, and he has a move just like Batman did in Batman Returns on the Super Nintendo, where you can basically pick 2 villains up and smash them into each other. It's such a brutal move, and it's basically the game's easy mode. Once you know that, it's game over for the villains. What a wonderful game though, and it's one I'll be playing over and over again as I do with all my favourite beat 'em ups for a long time to come. So there you have it then, 10 games beaten and off the backlog. What a great feeling that is. Which games have you beaten recently? Please do tell me, stick them in the comments below. As I say in all of these sort of videos, I love hearing about what other people are playing or other people are buying. It's just something that really interests me. They're the sort of videos I watch from other channels, so I love to make similar videos for you to watch too. A quick thank you to our Patreons as always for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, stay safe of course, and until next time, happy gaming.